With the Victorian election just 4 days away, the polls narrowing so that Labor and the Liberals are now level pegging on primary vote, and Labor desperate to hang on to its two-party preferred lead and cling to power. It's going to be a frenetic few days, including in the only face-to-face debate between the leaders of the campaign, when Daniel Andrews and Matthew Guy front up in the Sky News Herald Sun People's Forum, hosted by Kieran Gilbert in Melbourne in just an hour and a half from now. Should be a cracking night, a fascinating contest, and I'll catch up with Kieran a little later in the program. But I want to show you how this pressure is playing out in the campaign, how Labor's desperation and the determination of the union movement to keep Labor in power manifests itself on the election campaign trail. Just check out the Liberal leader's media event this morning.
Intimidation and division that Daniel Andrews has created in the state.
This is the kind of Victoria that Daniel Andrews thrives off. Intimidation and division. And Victorians are wising up to it. You know, we're better than this. We're better than this behaviour. We're better than this as a state. We're better than this, and we're better than the intimidation and the division that Daniel Andrews has created in this state.
Back off our jobs, I think they're saying. Back off Daniel Andrews' job is what they mean. This sort of bother boy tactics is just not on. Labor is going to try and scoot past this, of course. It'll beg the unions not to repeat this sort of stunt. But every now and then, some elements of the union movement show their true colours, don't they? And there's a link between this and federal politics at the moment, because the only reason the Albanese Labor government is trying to change industrial relation laws nationally is to give the unions more power, to pay its political dues to the union movement that funds it, supports it, campaigns for it, of course, controls the Labor Party. And the new laws will pass Parliament. They'll please the union movement and they're going to hurt small business.
Can the Minister now confirm the government's regulatory impact statement predicts the cost for small businesses to negotiate in the new multi-enterprise industrial relations system is between $14,000 and $75,000?
As the member opposite will be aware, more than 2 million businesses are actually exempt from the single interest stream bargaining system. More than 2 million, 90% of all Australian businesses, that is. He would also know, as I said earlier, that many businesses already incur costs and that many businesses are already covered by their employer peak organisation.
Yeah, clear as mud, isn't it? They've got to exempt small business, supposedly. It's a real worry for small business, this sort of expansion of union power, and it's a real worry elsewhere in the economy as well, of course. More industrial action is certain, more strikes and more union power. That, on top of high interest rates, a cost of living crunch and an energy cost and supply crisis, it's not a good recipe. Just on energy, how about Chris Bowen, the Climate and Energy Minister, jetting back into Australia from Egypt, where he bowed to the UN targets, agreed with all their bluster and committed to a fund that will funnel trillions of dollars to their climate change and wealth redistribution plans. After all that deference and all that unlimited, unspecified funding in the future, Bowen actually seems to think the warm welcome he got was all about his own brilliant plan.
So I'm pleased to report, Mr Speaker, that the government was warmly welcomed, the new government was warmly welcomed at the Conference of the Parties, Mr Speaker. I'm pleased to report to the House that the leadership provided by the government has been recognised around the world. And I'm also pleased to report, Mr Speaker, that we used the opportunity of the Conference of the Parties, which is now the world's largest trades fair, to sell Australia's wares as a renewable energy powerhouse.
Look, I've got to break it to Chris Bowen. When you turn up at somebody's show, heap praise upon them, repeat their mantras and promise to give some unspecified amount of money to the new fund you helped them create, they tend to be pretty welcoming. Still and all, he does say a lot of silly things, does the Climate Change Minister. It was kind of nice, though, in Parliament today that during that cut and thrust, during that debate, he did find time to say this.
John Howard was a leader. John Howard was a leader who understood our national interest.
Absolutely. Heaping praise on John Howard, no less. John Howard did know how to lead. He was a leader and he did understand the national interest. But Australia's national interest is not served by turning ourselves from a cheap energy powerhouse, from energy wealth, to an energy poor nation with cost and supply stress, and then to pay money to the rest of the world for the privilege of undermining our own economy. None of that is smart. None of that is clever at all, no matter how much the UN crowd cheers for it.